Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to deep dive into data learning and specifically how it's like totally changing how we think about productivity. We've got some awesome sources for this one.
Oh, yeah. What kind of stuff?
Well, first up, we have this super in-depth PDF all about data learning concepts, but then to like bring it all down to earth,
Huh.
we've also got some classic scenes from Office Space, that movie that like perfectly sums up
Oh, yeah. I love that movie.
those like soul-crushing office days we've all had.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
Then, to like round things out, we'll be walking through a cool Power BI tutorial that shows how to actually use data to understand productivity.
Nice. Sounds like a good mix. So what's the goal for today?
Well, by the end of this deep dive, you'll walk away not just knowing what data learning is, but also how it's being used right now to boost productivity in businesses.
Love it. Let's jump in.
Okay, so the PDF starts off with this super interesting analogy. It compares the evolution of data analysis to the way we've moved like people and stuff throughout history.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Like way back when we had simple carriages. Then trains and cars came along. And
Now
now,
we've got like the whole internet, right?
exactly, these incredibly complex cloud systems.
Yeah, it really shows how technology is always adapting to handle like more and more data, right?
Totally. It's like we've gone from horse-drawn carriages to like supersonic jets in the world of data.
That's a pretty awesome image.
Right. And with all this data flying around, it's getting kind of impossible for us humans to keep up, right?
Oh, yeah. Totally. I mean, we just weren't designed to process these massive data sets like computers can.
And that's where data learning comes in.
Exactly. Instead of humans like manually going through mountains of data, we can now train computers to do the heavy lifting for us.
Okay, so it's all about letting the computers do the number crunching so we can focus on the insights, right? Like the so what that helps us actually make decisions.
You got it. Think of it like this. You've got this team of like superpowered assistants who can analyze tons of data and then just give you like the most important findings.
Okay, that makes sense. So the PDF then goes on to like break down all the key players in this field: machine learning, deep learning, and artificial intelligence. And I gotta be honest, even I get these terms mixed up sometimes.
Yeah, it's easy to get confused. A lot of people do.
So can you give us like the clear definitions?
Absolutely. It's actually helpful to think of them like steps on a ladder. Machine learning is at the bottom. It's like the foundation.
Okay, so what exactly IIS machine learning?
Basically, it's teaching computers to learn from data and make predictions without like programming every single step. So like imagine you're teaching a computer to identify different types of fruit, right?
Okay.
You feed it like tons of pictures of apples, bananas, oranges, and it learns to tell them apart based on like their shape, color, and all that.
Oh, okay, I get it. So then where does deep learning fit into all of this?
So deep learning, that's like taking machine learning to a whole new level. It uses these things called artificial neural networks, which are basically inspired by the structure of our brains.
Neural networks. That sounds pretty complicated.
It might sound like it, but the idea is pretty simple. Think of it like a network of like interconnected light bulbs, right?
Okay.
And each bulb represents a piece of data. The connections between them get stronger or weaker depending on the data they're getting.
So the system kind of creates its own pathways to make sense of things, just like how our brains work.
Yeah, exactly. And that lets deep learning tackle, really complex tasks like image recognition, understanding language, or even like beating grandmasters at chess.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. So finally, we reach the top of the ladder: artificial intelligence.
The big one.
And this is where things get a little, I don't know, maybe scary for some people. We've all seen the movies where robots take over, right?
Wow. Yeah.
But I'm guessing real AI isn't quite that dramatic.
Yeah, definitely not. We're still pretty far away from that Hollywood version of AI.
So what does it actually look like then?
Think of it as like the ultimate goal, right? To create machines that can do things that usually need human intelligence, like problem solving, decision making, stuff like that.
So instead of replacing us, it's more like AI is going to be our partner in all of this.
Exactly, like a really smart partner. One great example is IBM's Watson, which is being used in healthcare to help doctors diagnose diseases and come up with the best treatment plans.
Okay, so it's already making a real difference. And I think that brings us nicely to what we'll be focusing on today: the whole area of people productivity.
That's right.
But before we get too serious, can we take a quick detour to Office Space for a minute?
Sure, why not? Always down for a little movie break.
I just love how that movie captures the frustration we've all felt at some point in our careers. You know those days when you're just like, ugh, what am I even doing here?
I know exactly what you mean.
You remember that scene where Peter's describing his typical workday?
Oh, yeah, the one where he's like, I sit at my desk and stare at my computer.
Yes. I think that scene resonates with so many people because it shows how it feels to be unproductive, even when you're, putting in the hours.
It's totally relatable. And actually, the PDF brings up this idea of using data learning to understand those moments, those unproductive days, both on a personal level, like for an individual, and across like a whole organization.
Okay, that's really interesting. So we've got the basics of data learning, a little AI reality check, and a dose of workplace humor. Where do we go from here?
Well, now that we set the stage, let's really dive into how data learning is helping us understand, and more importantly, improve people productivity.
Sounds good to me.
There's some cool concepts in the PDF, like these things called talent markers, and this whole idea of repeatable productivity. Have you heard of those?
Talent markers, that sounds intriguing. And yeah, the PDF mentions a Power BI tutorial that shows how we can use data visualization to uncover hidden patterns in regional productivity.
Yeah. That tutorial is a great way to see how we can use data to make smarter choices about things like, where to find the best talent or how to allocate resources effectively.
Okay, I'm officially hooked. Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's dig into these talent markers. They're like a secret code to figure out someone's potential.
Okay, I like that. Crack the code for me. What are talent markers exactly?
Well, think of it like this. They're those unique skills, traits, experiences, all the things that make someone really excel in a specific role. It's like a recipe for success.
So it's not just about how many hours you work or widgets you make. It's about what actually makes you good at your job.
You got it. We're moving away from just counting stuff to really understanding the quality of work, and that's where data learning helps. It pinpoints what makes someone a top performer.
Okay, this is starting to sound like the future of hiring to me. Forget resumes. Show me your talent marker profile.
Haha, you're getting it. And think about it. Imagine using that data to create like super personalized learning programs for each employee. No more one-size-fits-all training.
Yeah, that makes way more sense. You'd be setting everyone up for success right from the start. No more, here's the manual, good luck.
Totally. And the PDF even talks about using data learning to spot those high potential employees, the ones who may not be superstars yet, but they've got the right stuff to get there with a little guidance.
Like unearthing those hidden gems in your company. And wouldn't that make people more motivated knowing their company's investing in their growth based on their unique strengths?
Absolutely. It's all about that growth mindset, right? Making people feel valued and empowered to reach their full potential.
Okay, so now I'm thinking back to that office space scene. What if we could use data to figure out what causes those unproductive days? Those times when you feel totally stuck.
That's such a cool idea. Imagine being able to see patterns in how people work, communicate, even the office layout. Maybe some of that is contributing to that feeling of like, ugh, this is pointless.
Right. We could redesign the space to encourage collaboration, maybe streamline how people communicate, or even let people set their own schedules to work when they're most productive.
Exactly. It's about designing the workplace to support well-being and help people do their best work. But we got to talk about this concept of repeatable productivity too.
Oh yeah, the PDF mentioned that. What's that all about?
Okay, so once we know which talent markers lead to good outcomes, we can try to recreate those successes in other parts of the business. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like instead of starting from scratch every time, you're using what already works to build awesome teams and processes.
Exactly. A cycle of productivity where data is constantly informing and improving how the whole organization works.
Wow, okay. I'm seeing how powerful this can be. It's like we're going from a world of gut feelings to one where data is actually guiding how we make decisions about talent, development, even the office itself. But did the PDF also talk about globalization and how that plays into all of this?
Right. It talked about how data can help companies figure out how to move talent around in a really strategic way, which can have a huge impact on productivity.
You mean like being able to find the best person for the job no matter where they are in the world?
Yeah, exactly. It's about breaking down those geographic barriers and really opening up the talent pool. Imagine a company needs someone with like super specialized skills. Now they can search the whole world for that person, not just their local area.
That's amazing, but I'm also thinking about the challenges, right? Like managing teams across time zones, different cultures, all of that.
Of course, there are always challenges, but data can help with those too. Companies can use data to analyze how people communicate,
Yeah.
maybe spot potential cultural differences, and even predict where conflicts might arise.
So it's not just about finding the right person, it's about setting them up to succeed in this new global environment.
Totally. Creating an inclusive and supportive workplace where everyone feels connected, no matter where they're actually located. And that's where that Power BI tutorial comes in, right? Just remember that.
Oh, yeah. The one that shows us how to analyze regional productivity using data. I'm ready for some action.
Okay, so in the tutorial, they use real Canadian labor productivity data as an example.
Oh, cool. Canadian data.
And then they use a visualization called a tree map. Have you ever seen one of those?
I think so, but remind me.
It's basically a way to see the data visually, rather than just staring at a spreadsheet full of numbers.
Okay, that makes sense. So what does the tree map show us in this case?
Well, you can quickly see patterns and trends that might not be obvious from just the raw numbers. Like you can see which provinces have the highest productivity, which industries are booming, and even compare productivity between, say, companies that make stuff versus companies that provide services.
I can see how that would be super useful for businesses, right? They could use that info to decide where to invest or open new offices.
Totally. And what's really cool is that you can add another layer of data, like value, for example. Then you can actually see the productivity numbers themselves, so you can really quantify the differences between different regions and sectors.
This reminds me of those talent markers we were talking about earlier. Could we use this data to find, like, clusters of people with certain skills?
That's a great point. Yeah, maybe the tree map shows a bunch of super productive software developers in British Columbia, for example.
Okay, I'm following.
And that might tell you there's either a strong talent pool there or maybe a really good training program in that area.
Okay, I'm with you. So you could use that info to inform your hiring strategies, target specific areas for recruiting, or even partner with schools to develop those skills. That's pretty amazing.
It is. It's all about using data to make smarter decisions about finding, developing, and placing the right talent. And we need to remember the cost of mobility, too. That was a big point in the PDF.
Oh, yeah. They emphasize how data can help us make smart decisions about moving people around, not just from a talent perspective, but also financially, right?
Right. Because even though globalization has a lot of benefits, we also need to think about the cost of moving people and resources across borders, like travel expenses, relocation, visas, all that stuff.
Yeah, you can't just say, okay, you're moving to this country without understanding what that actually means financially.
Exactly. We need to find the right balance between maximizing the benefits of moving people around while also minimizing the costs. And this is where data analytics can be so powerful. It gives us the tools to really break down those costs and analyze them in detail.
So we could use data to compare the cost of moving someone versus just hiring locally, or see how much we get back for different mobility scenarios. It's like weighing your options before you make a big decision.
Yeah, making those data-informed choices, not just data-driven ones. It's about being thoughtful and strategic so that both the company and the employee benefit.
Okay, I'm getting it. But I have to say, this is a lot to take in. Sometimes it feels like drinking from a fire hose, you know?
I hear you. It can be overwhelming. But don't get lost in all the details. Just focus on the main points.
Okay, good advice.
Like we're talking about using data to figure out what makes people successful, how to repeat that success, and how to use global talent in a way that benefits everyone.
Okay, yeah, that helps. So for someone who's totally new to this, what would you say are the best next steps for learning more?
Well, honestly, the resources we've talked about today are a great starting point. The PDF gives a good foundation, and the Power BI tutorial shows how you can actually apply these ideas.
And I'm sure there are tons of other resources out there too, right? Like books, articles, online courses.
Yeah, definitely. The important thing is to stay curious and keep learning. Things change so fast in this field, so you got to stay up to date.
And don't be afraid to actually try things out. Apply what you learn in your own work or even your personal life. You won't be surprised what you discover.
Exactly. It's all about embracing that data-driven mindset and seeing how it can change how you approach problems and opportunities.
Okay, so today we've talked about the evolution of data analysis, all those key data learning concepts, the power of talent markers, and how globalization and mobility are shaking things up. We even saw how tools like Power BI can bring all this data to life. Anything I'm missing?
I think you covered it all. We've really seen how these different pieces fit together to create this new landscape for how we work.
But before we move on, I want to circle back to the cost of mobility one more time. The PDF really stressed how data can help us make smart choices, not just about talent, but also about the financial side of things.
Yeah, that's crucial. It's not just about moving people around willy-nilly.
Uh-huh.
We need to be strategic and make sure it makes financial sense too.
Okay, so let's recap. We've covered talent markers, repeatable productivity, how data can help with talent mobility and regional investments, and we even dove into data visualization tools. Phew. Anything else we should hit before we wrap up this section?
I think you nailed the key points. We've seen how data can make us rethink how we understand and measure productivity, and how it's not just about numbers, but about empowering people to be their best.
Exactly. So as we move on to the final part of our deep dive, let's keep that in mind. Data is amazing, but it's the people that really matter. Welcome back to our deep dive, you guys. All about data learning and how it's like changing the whole productivity game.
It's good to be back. We've
Yeah.
already covered so much ground. Talent markers, data visualization, you name it.
You know, as we were wrapping up the last part, I kept thinking about something you said, how data learning can help us build a more human-centered workplace.
That's a great point. It's easy to get caught up in the technical stuff, but at the end of the day, it's all about people.
Exactly. It's about using all this cool tech to help people actually thrive in their careers, to create a workplace where everyone feels, I don't know, valued.
Totally. And remember how the PDS gave those really good examples of how that's already happening? Like companies using data learning to make those learning and development programs more personalized?
Oh, yeah, like instead of everyone having to go through the same boring training, we can actually tailor them to how each person learns best.
Exactly. Figure out their strengths, weaknesses, how they like to learn, and create a truly custom experience for them.
That's so much better than the old one-size-fits-all approach. And didn't they also talk about using data learning to spot those employees with tons of potential?
Oh, yeah. Those high potential employees. It's all about looking beyond how someone's doing right now. Seeing who might just need a little extra support or different opportunities to really excel.
I love that. It's like finding those hidden superstars. And I bet it makes people feel good too, right? Knowing that their company actually cares about their future.
Absolutely. It's a win-win for everyone. The employees feel seen, and companies get to develop a whole new generation of leaders. But data learning can also make workplaces more equitable and inclusive.
Oh, tell me more about that. That's something I'm super passionate about.
Well, we know that, whether we realize it or not, our own biases can creep into things like hiring decisions, promotions, even performance reviews.
Yeah, it's true.
But with data learning, we can actually start to identify and then correct those biases, make things fairer for everyone.
So instead of going with your gut feeling, you can actually use data to make more objective, unbiased decisions. That's huge.
Right. It helps make sure that everyone has a fair shot at succeeding, no matter what their background is, their gender, ethnicity, all of that.
It's like we're finally seeing how data can make work not just more productive, but also like a better experience for everyone.
Yeah, and that's what I find so inspiring about this whole field. It's not just about numbers, it's about people. It's about using data to build a better future of work for everyone.
I love that. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive. So to everyone listening, I hope you'll join us on this data-driven journey. But remember, at the end of the day, it's the people who matter most.
Right. Data is powerful, no doubt. But it's up to us to use it responsibly and ethically to make work more productive and more human.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We hope you learned something new. And keep those conversations going because the future of work is happening now.